More Stories from Grandma's Attic by Arleta Richardson, illustrated by Dora. Chapter 8, A Pig in a Poke. "Your surprise package came in the mail this morning," Grandma said to me as I came home for lunch. "Oh, goody, where is it?" I asked. "Here on the table. Now don't be too disappointed if it isn't all you thought it would be." I had ordered a mystery box from a magazine ad, imagining all sorts of lovely things that might be inside. "I guess you had 25 cents worth of pleasure waiting for it," Grandma said when she saw the flimsy little toy the box contained. "Next time, I'll just spend my quarter at the store where I can see what I'm getting," I said. "I wouldn't have paid a nickel for this." That's what's called buying a pig in a poke. You aren't the first one to do that. "A pig in a poke? What does that mean?" "A poke is an old word that means a sack," Grandma replied. "If you buy a pig in a poke, you pay for it without looking at it first. Then you have to take what you get. It's not the smartest way to do business, but you may learn a lesson from it." "Have you ever bought a pig in a poke, Grandma?" "No, I didn't, but my brothers did. One of our neighbors sold his farm and was ready to move to another state. The day before he left, the boys went over to say goodbye." That night at the supper table, Reuben asked Pa, "Could we use Nellie and the wagon in the morning? There's something we want to bring home from the Shaw's barn."
"What kind of something? We have several somethings in our own barn that could stand hauling off."
Reuben and Roy exchanged worried looks. "Well," Reuben explained, "it's an old trunk. Mr. Shaw said we could have it and whatever is in it for just 50 cents.
"So we put our money together and bought it,"
Roy added. Pa put his fork down and looked at the boys.
50 cents? You mean you paid for the thing and didn't even look inside to see what you were getting?"
Reuben looked embarrassed.
"We tried to," he mumbled, "but we couldn't get it open. Mr. Shaw said it hadn't been open for 50 years or more because no one could find the key."
"What in the world do you plan to do with the trunk full of who knows what that you can't even get into?" Pa asked. "Can't you think of a better way to spend your money?"
"It seemed like a good idea at the time," Reuben explained. "We thought we'd get it open some way, and it might be something really valuable."
"Very likely," Pa snorted. "A trunk that's been sitting in a barn for 50 years is bound to be a real prize."
"Can we take the wagon then?" Reuben asked.
"Yes," Pa replied. "Go ahead and take it. I hope for your sakes it's worth your time and effort."
The boys were sure it would be, and they spent the rest of the evening talking about the treasure they would have.
"If there's anything you like, we'll give it to you,"
Roy said to Ma.
"There might even be $1 or something for Mabel."
"Thank you," Ma said. "That's generous of you. I just hope there's something in there you'll like." Ma and I were at the window when the wagon pulled up the next morning, and we ran out to the porch. The boys looked delighted with themselves as they jumped down.
"Come and look, Ma,"
Roy called.
"Can we bring it in the kitchen?"
"Mercy, no! You're not bringing 50 years of barn dirt into my kitchen. Put it up here on the porch."
"But what if it rains?"
Roy asked anxiously. Ma eyed the rusty old hinges and scuffed up leather. One more good rain couldn't do anything but improve it. So, groaning and puffing, the boys tugged it up the steps. It was about 3 feet long and 1.5 feet high. "If it's worth its weight in anything at all, you'll have a fortune," Ma said. "Did you hear a rattle in there?"
"No," Reuben replied. "It didn't even move. It feels like one solid piece of iron to me. Part of the floor came up when we moved it,"
Roy put in.
"I think Mr. Shaw's pa built the barn around it."
"Well, you boys can figure out how you want to get it open while you're working today. Pa wants you to come help with the fence right away."
"Yes, ma'am," Reuben answered. "We'll work on it after dinner."
The boys went out to the field, and Ma and I went back to the kitchen.
"What do you think's in there, Ma?"
I asked. I wouldn't have any idea. Usually, folks keep things like quilts or old photographs or books, that sort of thing in them. I can't imagine what could be that heavy. I guess we'll have to wait until the boys get it open. The rest of the morning I hung around the porch and watched the trunk. One time Ma called to me from the kitchen door. "Haven't you anything better to do than watch that piece of junk?" You are not going to know one thing more than you do right now until it's opened." She pushed the door out with her foot and handed me a pan. "As long as you're sitting there, you can at least snap the beans for dinner. I know how you feel. I'm anxious to know what's in there, too." The morning passed slowly, but finally Pa and the boys came in from the field. Reuben stopped at the barn and picked up a crowbar. "Come and eat dinner first, boys," Ma said. "If I'm not mistaken, you'll need all the strength you can get to pry that open." Ma wasn't mistaken. Try as they would, the boys were not able to open the trunk. Red-faced and breathless, they left to join Pa in the field. "Oh dear, we're never going to see what's in there," I said. "I'm sure we will," Ma replied. "Pa will help them this evening. They'll find some way to open it." I spent the afternoon dreaming about all the wonderful things the trunk might hold and hoping that some of them might come to me. When supper was over, Pa and the boys tackled the job again. The lid was rusted shut, and there seemed to be no place to get the crowbar under it. Finally, after much whacking and pounding, it began to look as though it might move.
"Let's give it another try,"
Pa said. They all leaned hard against the crowbar, and the lid cracked open. We crowded up close as Reuben pushed up the creaky top to reveal the contents.
"Nails?"
he said. Pa looked over Reuben's shoulder and nodded his head.
"Nails."
"Nails?"
Roy yelped.
"Is that whole trunk full of rusty old nails?"
It certainly looked that way. The nails were pitted and red and stuck together with rust. Reuben pushed his hand in as far as it would go and reported more of the same near the bottom.
"Seems to me I remember Bert Shaw saying that his father was a blacksmith before he bought the farm," Pa said. "This must be all that's left of the smithy. I don't know what you can do with them, boys. I don't think there's much call for rusty nails." "That was an awful lot of work for something as useless as this," Reuben sighed.
"Besides, we lost 50 cents on it,"
Roy added. "Seems to me there's something in the Bible about laying up treasures where moth and rust will corrupt," Ma said. "Maybe this is a good example to remind us."
"I guess so," Reuben said. "But I'd just as soon someone else's 50 cents had paid for it. Let's haul the thing out to the barn. Maybe the peddler will buy them when he comes by again," Pa suggested. The boys brightened up a little at that thought, and the trunk was moved to the barn. I don't remember whether the peddler took it or not, but I'm sure the boys didn't buy anything sight unseen again. End of chapter 8.